I'm Maggie. Welcome to Experiments in Crafting. Sorry I didn't get a chance to live stream last week. It was kind of a really busy day for me, and then I ended up going out of town late last week, so I was out of town Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And so Thursday I was packing and doing all sorts of stuff, and I just didn't get an opportunity to stream on Thursday as I thought I might. So, I've got a couple of project updates to share with you guys, and then I want to show you guys something going on Instagram, and then I'm just gonna sort of open it up to questions and see what you guys have to talk about. So I'll have my computer open, so if you've got Ravelry questions or Instagram questions, you can ask those. If you've got regular yarn questions or crochet questions or anything like that, those you can always ask as well. So I see a handful of people are saying hello, welcome everybody. Jake and Savannah and Macy, I think. My eyesight is not as good as it used to be. So, I have the chat up in front of me, but sometimes I just can't quite read the lettering. So, it's open pretty big too, which is it's getting pretty sad. But anyway, I'm going to move on. So, I did finish a hat. This is out of the Red Heart Roll With It Melange yarn that I showed you guys. I got a bunch of colors a few weeks ago. This hat is a herringbone slouch. Let me pull it up. I think it's Crochet by Jennifer. Yep. And looks like I made it out of the same color that the example is made out of here. But this is the Spiral Herringbone Slouch by Crochet by Jennifer. It is a paid pattern, $4.95. But there's a discount if you're buying multiple patterns. I really like the pattern. I thought it was really well written, and I really like how the hat turned out. I guess I could throw it on for you guys so you can see. I don't like when hats don't have a cuff. It's just my style. Like, it's not meant to wear with the cuff. Like, you're supposed to wear it with it unfolded, but I just think it looks really strange on me. So, this is the hat just on. And it looks a lot better if I have my hair down, but it's pulled back right now. But I don't know. I like the way it looks, but I'll show you. Like, there it is without the cuff, and I just don't like the way it looks on me, but it is a style that a lot of people wear and do like. So, yep, I'm going to set it down so you guys can see it a little bit better and see the pattern on it. So this is worked entirely with post stitches in the round. So it's just combinations, and she goes through how to do this, but post stitches are relatively straightforward. You just, instead of working into the top of the stitch, you work around the post, which is like the stick portion of the stitch. So if you're just like this hat looks like it's really complicated. It's got these really interesting stripes, and like there's horizontal lines going on, and it looks crazy and super complicated. But it really isn't that bad. It's just keeping track of your stitch counts, and for the vast majority of the hat, you're not doing any sort of increases or decreases or anything like that. So, I recommend the pattern. I liked the way that it worked up, and I've been pretty happy with the hat itself. I've been wearing it a whole bunch. It is frigid cold. I'm in Central Illinois. I think it was like 9 degrees this morning when I went to work. Yeah, 9 degrees Fahrenheit here. And it was cold and miserable. And everything is just coated in ice. I noticed, before the stream started, there was a little bit of chatter going on, and Jake was mentioning that, schools are closed in Missouri because of the ice, which I totally believe. The ice is pretty bad here. Central Illinois gets quite a bit of snow and quite a bit of ice and rain, but they do not know how to deal with it whatsoever. So I'm not really sure what the problem is, but my husband and I are originally from closer to Chicago, and we're used to snow removal like working, and it does not in Central Illinois. So we've lived here, I don't know, 13 years almost, and it's not really gotten any better. So, anyway, it's been nice to have warm things to wear, and I know a lot of people make things for other people, but hopefully occasionally you get to make something for yourself. My husband's saying I should talk about how this yarn pools to make these cool stripes. It is an interesting yarn because you can't really see it with the one that I grabbed out of the pile, but I've got a bunch of different ones. But what you can see a little bit here is that there are like small chunks of color, and you can see it pretty well in the hat here. That as I was working, and as I turn this hat, you can see that there's a section where I was working gold, and then as the gold turned, it turned into sort of like a greenish, reminds me of like butterfly colors. And then as it keeps going, it's working its way back to sort of a yellowy with some red in it. And then it transitions to an aqua. And then it gets pretty teal. And then as I made my way back around here, it's starting back in gold. And so you get that for a few rows. So all the way around, because these stitches and then these stitches and then these stitches were worked, it works out that the colors start to bunch on top of each other. It's just that the color transitions work out to about the same length as the hat is round. And so by the time I get back to these gold ones, I'm back to the beginning of the round, and I'm working. So you get these little chunks of color pooling where there's a section of gold, there's a section of, I don't really know what to call this color, like sherbet. It's like orange and pink. There's a section of like a gray brown. There's a section of pink. And it works up really nicely because those color transitions are long and sort of far enough apart and repeating that you get like these chunks of color pooling, and it makes a really cool looking hat. I haven't seen a whole lot of yarns that do that, so it's the interesting part is it's repeating colors in long sections and then a color change, like a completely different color change. So it's not just like the gold moved. There's a whole chunk of this hat where there's just no gold. There's this yellowy part, but like this whole dark gold section is gone. And it shows back up later on up here, but it's not just 1, 2, 3 repeat. It's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, and then back to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's like it's a little bit hard to explain, but it works up in a really neat way. I'm gonna check a few comments up here before I lose them off the top of the screen. Twine Twiddler said, finally caught me. That's great. Glad to see you. I know that you've missed a couple of streams and have been disappointed in afterwards, so I'm glad you made it tonight. Jake Parker saying, with the cuff folded up is way better than down because if it's down, it looks perfectly straight. And I like my hat to lay down. Agreed. I like the cuff folded up, but I don't know. Maybe it's just a difference in, like, it's just a different style. But Missouri's 7 or 8 degrees. Yeah, it's been cold, really, really cold. My car said 15 on the way home. I don't really believe it, but not really sure what the temperature is out right now, but it's cold. Twine Whittler saying that this is beautiful yarn and haven't tried it yet. And what's the name of the yarn from Runaway Needle Red? The name of the yarn is it's a Red Heart yarn, and it is called Roll With It Melange. So there's that. Try and get it without too much glare. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby. It's $6.99 a ball. I should mention I got a hat out of this. I think left in the ball. It's somewhere upstairs, but I think that there's probably another hat's worth. There's certainly a kid's hat worth. So I definitely made like the largest adult size, and I think there's probably another kid's hat worth. There might even be an adult hat out of what's left. There's probably enough for fingerless gloves, so you could probably do a hat and fingerless gloves with the ball. So it is $6.99, but it is a pretty sizable ball. I'll give you some stats on this, and if you want to see more colors or anything like that, you can flip back to, we had an older live stream where I showed all the colors that I bought. I think there were 3 that I was not able to get, but I did get these. So they are, I think this is 4.29, but I can't. It is 5.29 ounces or 150 grams. It's 100% acrylic. You get 389 yards or 356 meters. It's a number 4 medium weight yarn, and they recommend a 5.5 millimeter eye hook or a 5 millimeter US 8 knitting needle. So those are your sort of some quick stats here. Color in my hand is autograph. The color right here, I don't remember the name of, but I could find it real quick. Let's see what colorways. Maybe I can't. Some companies are not as good about putting their colorways in, and it does not look like Red Heart has updated their colorways. So I don't know what it is. They're all, what do I want to say? They're all like inspired by Broadway or Hollywood. It's Showtime. So this color here is Showtime. And actually, if I flip back to the pattern designer's pictures here, you can see she's made it in pretty much every color. So if you want to know how it's going to work up, on her Facebook, you can see. So here's the green one. Here's a, let's see if I'm matched up here. There's like an orange and purple one, sort of a dark blue and orange and gold. This one is probably autograph. So this one here is probably the autograph yarn. Let me scroll down a little bit so my picture's not in the way. This one here is probably the autograph that's in my hand. But you can see all the different colors in here. And then she's added some people who have, who've made it out of different yarns as well. But if you flip over to her Facebook, you can see she's got like a whole array. She's made the hat in basically every color. It was pretty nice yarn to work with. I'm picky on my acrylics, and this is 100% acrylic. It's actually 100% acrylic. It's got quite a bit of halo, and it's not a really like heavily twisted yarn. It's kind of a light twist, all of which generally lead me to not like a yarn all that much, and I really liked how this worked up. So, I guess I would recommend it if you feel like picking up some Roll With It Melange. I also recommend the pattern if you've just got any other yarn to work it up with. So, I have had a harder time finding the Roll With It Melange. The Roll With It Tweed has been available in a bunch of places, but it's a pretty different yarn. It's got a tweed, like, it's not really tweed looking so much as it is just like multi-stranded, like 3 colors twisted together. It's in the back room. I could grab it real quick. Hold on 1 second. I'll grab it. This is it. All right. So, this is the Roll With It Tweed, which is, I guess, supposed to be sort of like a sister yarn to the Roll With It Melange, but I don't like it nearly as much. And some of the colors, this one's pretty okay, but the some of them are really intense, like crazy colors. So, but you can see here that there's like blue and a color changing purple mixed in here. And then it goes to like a blue and gray, and white. But it has sort of the same idea here, where it's like a chunk with a theme, and then a chunk with sort of a different color, and then a chunk with a different color. So it might work up very similarly to this, where you're going to end up with pooling, and the pools are going to change as you move. But I think personally I like the Melange yarn better than the tweed, just by eye and by like available colors. I haven't worked anything up yet with the Roll With It tweed, so I can't say how it works up. All right, sort of moving on. I am working on a couple of different projects. I just got this one started. I made a hat I made 2 hats actually for a coworker, who has twin, I think they're about 9 or 10 months old, and twin girls, and I made them a couple of hats and asked him to take them home, try them on, and then bring them back to me and let me know how they fit, because if they didn't fit, I was going to make new ones, and if they did fit, I wanted to duplicate. And so he took them home, they fit, and then it got frigid cold here, and he kept them and left them on them. So I don't have the hat that I finished to show you. I also don't have it to duplicate the hat, so I'm kind of working a little bit blind and trying to remember exactly what I did, so I can make the same hat over for the second kid. So the first hat that I made had a white band. The body of the hat was worked up in purple with little tiny white hearts. And this one I'm going to do sort of the mirror of that. I'm going to do purple band. The body of the hat is going to be white, and it's going to have little purple hearts. And so I'm going to show you the pattern on that so you can sort of envision what I'm talking about here. I think that one's called Snowfall Beanie. Let's see what shows up here. I'm going to pull it up on Ravelry. It's right here. Snowfall Slouchy Hat. So it works up just like this. And, whoop, too far. So you can see they work this one up, and it's got these little white sort of little hearts. And you work those by working like partial color changes. The pattern's very good at explaining how to do that. This pattern is available as a paid version if you want to download the PDF, but the pattern designer does have a free version on their website. It's a full free version so that you can do it, but you can't really save it. It's not easy to like print out or download. So if you're the type of person who likes to save their patterns, keep track of them in their Ravelry library, and print them out and write all over them, it might be worth paying the $3 to have the like cleaned up, no ad version. If you are the type of person who doesn't mind, using it from a website and you can keep track of it like that, and you might as well use the free version, and then you have access to that on the website, and the pattern designer makes their money. Instead of you paying for the PDF, they make their money from the ad revenue from you visiting the website. So it works out for some designers that they can offer a free version and a paid version, depending on whether you want to pay for the convenience of having a cleaned up PDF. So, but this is the hat that I'm working on. So the first hat was more like the blue one here, where it was in the blue spot, it was purple, and where it's gray, it's white. And then this hat is going to be more like this. It's going to be purple with the body being white and the purple being the accent color. So I will do better on the second hat and get pictures before I give it to anybody. So, like I said, I gave it to him with the request of getting it back so that I could duplicate, but I don't blame him. It was a nice, cozy, warm hat. I am working with Red Heart Chic Sheep, which is 100% merino wool at a pretty good price for wool. I had some of these balls around and I wanted to give it a try. I was going to work on a review, so hopefully I can get this hat done, get a review real quick, and get him the hat so that the kids can start wearing them. The other hat, so I did say I made 2 and they were twins, so they each did get a hat. It's not just one of them has a warm hat and the other one doesn't. The other hat that I made was a bear hood. These were really popular a couple years back, and I really like them. They're fun to work up. Let me find the one that I use. It's usually pretty easy to find. Let me switch some settings here. Crochet in my library. There it is. So the one that I use is this Bailey Bear cowl. And I'll open the picture up here. So this is one that's been pretty popular. There's a whole bunch of them. There are paid and free versions. I really like this particular designer. It's from Velvet Acorn Designs. I've got a number of hoods from them that I really like. She does really nice photography. So if I flip over to her page, you probably will recognize some of these from just around Facebook and Instagram. These pictures get shared a ton. She's got these cute little blonde girls that she takes a bunch of pictures in different hats and cowls and whatnot. So these are pretty popular, but I liked the Bailey Bear hat. I paid for it a couple years ago. I've made a ton of hoods out of them. And so this is a pretty easy one for me. I was able to make, I used Loops and Threads Charisma, which is a heavyweight, like a number 6 weight yarn. It's very similar to Loops, or to Lion Brand Thick and Quick, Woolies Thick and Quick, any of those Lion Brand heavyweight yarns. I made one baby hood. I used the 6 to 12 month size, and I made one baby hood out of one ball of yarn. I think a hood for an adult usually takes about 3 balls, and like for a average size, like small child, I've used 2 before in the past. So, but they work up. They are a cowl portion, and then so you work that part in the round, and then you work back and forth for the hood portion. You sew it up, and you put ears on, and it works up pretty well and pretty easily, and quickly because it's a heavy yarn and you use a pretty large hook. So. I'm gonna kind of glance back at comments here. Just trying to catch up here. Couple people. Let's see where we at. New Day Crochet likes the hat. Jake's saying that it's day 2 of no school tomorrow. Will be day 3. I think so. Our snow rolled in here. What was that? Monday morning, like late, like early Monday morning, like 3 a.m. So, and I don't think they've shut any schools down around here, but it's still pretty cold. It takes a little bit more here than it does as you get further south. And then Savannah likes the colors and says you can use Snapshot to save it to your photos, and then you have the pattern. Yeah, that's an option too. If you're, I think she's referring back to what I was saying. You don't have the access to the pattern if you use the free version on a website. And yeah, you can do screenshots and things like that. But either way, like if you, I guess I usually try, if I'm going to use the free pattern, I usually try and visit the website so that they get the ad revenue personally. It is usually way more convenient to have pictures and not have to worry about like remembering where the website was and trying to get back to it and stuff like that. So, but yeah, there's workarounds, if that's what you'd like to do. So, all right, so that's the hat. I'm going to set that aside. And then I'm also working on a cardigan. And I don't remember the name of this pattern, but it will be in my in my most recently bought patterns, because this was one I bought and paid for as well. It is a baby shell cardigan by Donna Brown. So this is the cardigan laid out flat with the arms laid backwards, and this is actually how you look at it and wear it. So same coworker I'm working on this for. I've had this yarn around kind of forever, this Cherub DK from Cascade. I bought it originally to make a sweater for my sister, and it wasn't working, like it didn't look the same as what I was trying to make. I guess let me rephrase that. I saw a pattern, I loved how it looked. I decided I was going to use this instead of the yarn that they suggested, because I couldn't get the yarn that they suggested real easily. And I started it up, and I didn't care for the way it was turning out. And so there's nothing wrong with this yarn. It just didn't look how I wanted it to look. So I bought 10 of these. And so I've got a whole bunch of them, and I didn't really have anything in mind. I generally make my baby blankets with a little bit heavier yarn. This is a DK weight, and it's, I think, a little on the light side of a DK. So it's been sitting, and so I decided I would make these cardigans and just get some use out of some of the yarn in my stash. So right now I'm working it up, and it sort of works as this like partial hexagon. And then what I'm going to do here next in the pattern is, after you get this work to about this point, this becomes the shoulders, and you've got the part that opens here. And then you join down in these corners. So you work. So I'll work these stitches here, and these. Sorry, I'll work these stitches, and when I get to this corner, I will skip all these stitches and join right there, and that leaves an armhole here, and then you just continue working along the back side. And when you get to this corner, you skip all these stitches, and you just pick up your stitches and join right here. And so that gets you 2 armholes. And then kind of the nice thing about working a sweater like this, and I've worked a bunch of doll dresses and stuff like this before, is that you work and work and work until it's like pretty big, and then you get to skip all these stitches, and you start working in sort of back and forth, but you get to like omit a whole bunch of stitches that you built up. So it starts going quicker. It's quick to start, and then it gets longer and longer to do each row, and then all of a sudden you get to do rows really quick because you just like dumped like 70 stitches. So that's kind of nice. It makes it go a little bit faster. Reminds me a little bit of like a corner to corner, because you work for a long time and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the center, and then you get to start decreasing. And so the first like third goes pretty quickly, and then there's a chunk in the middle where it takes forever, and then the last third goes really quickly because you're losing stitches. So it's a little bit nice. It's kind of nicer than working like something that goes like this and gets bigger and bigger, like a shawl. Occasionally you'll work such that it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, making a triangle, or something like a rectangle where it's just the same throughout. So, let's see, a couple more comments here. Savannah's saying she's crocheting a cardigan, and using a square yoke. So yeah, I don't know. I like this style. There's been a couple of dresses that I've made, like I said, doll dresses and stuff, where this style really works very nicely and lays really nice. So, yeah. So that's what I'm working on. Just kind of some updates on what I'm doing. The reason I've got my computer dragged out, though, is I noticed right before the stream started that Get Your Yarn Wishes Granted is back. So Get Your Yarn Wishes is sort of a hard thing to explain without just showing you what it is. It's done on Instagram. It's a little bit like a Secret Santa / I don't really know. What you do is you use Regram or one of the Instagram things where you can download a picture and then repost it, which is not something that Instagram supports natively. Like, you can't, there's no way to repost a post on Instagram, like in Instagram. So it makes it an absolutely terrible platform for this to happen on, but this is where people do it. But you get a picture, and you want to switch over to Instagram. So this is the picture that like most people are using, is this get your yarn wishes granted. There's like a rules thing in here, and I'll make this bigger. So it says how to play, list what your wishes below, repost with hashtag get your yarn wishes granted. If some wonderful knitter has your wish and wants to grant it, they will let you know. Once you've granted a wish for someone else, list a new wish for yourself. So it's, you post this picture, you put the hashtag get your yarn wishes granted, people go through and look at all of the yarn wishes. If they have something that you posted in the comment like that you want, then they will contact you and say, send me your address, I'll send you this thing that you asked for. So just as a example, just this person's right here. This person listed a few things that they would be interested in. So super thin yarn, a cone of natural fibers like wool, cotton, or any cones for weaving, still natural fiber, or hand-dyed roving, or alpaca non-wool roving top. So this person's looking for basically things for spinning and weaving. And they've listed these things. If you had one of those things, you'd contact them and say, I'll send you this, and you'd ship it to them. And then you would post, I want this thing, and then maybe somebody else would find it. And so it's sort of like I don't even know if there's a word for this type of thing. It reminds me a little bit of a white elephant, like where people are like taking gifts and exchanging them, and like, I don't know. It's a weird thing, but it's a lot of fun. Some people just ask for like an easy thing, like a paid pattern on Ravelry. And that's an easy thing. It doesn't provide it. Like, it doesn't cost any shipping. It's a few dollars, and you might just be like, well, I can put $5 towards a pattern, and then somebody gets a pattern. Some people ask for crochet hooks or knitting needles, or, I've seen a lot of people just saying, like, I would really love to try an indie hand-dyed yarn. I've never done it. And if you happen to have an excess, like I perhaps do, then you could just send something out. My husband's saying it's like unsecret Santa. It is sort of like, I don't know, you just post a wish list, and if somebody has something, they send it to you. And it may be sort of a surprise, like they might say, I have an indie dyed yarn that you can have, and so you don't know what exactly you're getting. Alternately, there are a few people, so you can see, if I go back to the website, you can see that there's a few people who have pictures that are stamped reversed or reverse. Those people have things that they want to get rid of, and they're up for grabs. So, like, this particular person has these balls of Hobby Lobby's I Love This Cotton. They want to give them to somebody. The first person who asks for it, they will ship it to. So it's just yours if you want it. Like, the idea is that you're not supposed to be particularly greedy or, like, just go through post and try and take everybody's stuff. The idea is if there's a couple of things that you like, and then you can supply a couple other people with other things, then you get rid of some stuff that you don't want and get some stuff that you do want. So it's kind of just like a little bartering system where you're sort of bartering on goodwill. I don't know. It's a weird thing, but it's something that happens towards the end of the year. I feel like it starts a little bit earlier every year. Part of that, I think, is just because people want to use yarn for gifts. And so if they get it sooner, then they can actually use it still. And I think part of that is money gets tighter as you get closer to Christmas for a lot of people. And so your ability to supply people with things for, like shipping and like buying patterns and things like that sort of gets less and less as you get closer to Christmas, because your budget might get a little bit tighter as you're buying gifts for family and stuff. So if you move away from Christmas a little bit, I think people can be a little bit more generous. So if it's a thing you're interested in, it's out there. I just thought I saw it pop up today, and just thought it was worth explaining and worth letting you guys know it's going on. Like I said, Instagram couldn't be a worse platform for this to take place on, except that it is the platform it takes place on. Like, it would be so much better on pretty much anything else, where like you could keep track of lists and things weren't so difficult to find. And I don't know, I think Instagram's a little bit of a disaster as far as a platform. It's really pretty to look at, and like it's really nice to just like look through pictures, but if you scroll past something and you don't save it, there is no finding it. It's a not searchable platform, like, at all. So you can search for hashtags, but you can't qualify the hashtags. And as far as I've found, you can't even search for like multiple hashtags or like a description or anything. I don't know. I like Instagram because I like to just scroll through and look at things, but it's pretty terribly set up, in my opinion. Like, I don't I don't know. Maybe I'm just too old and I don't get it. Like, I'm not that much older than the target market for Instagram, but I'm sufficiently older that I just like don't get social media quite well enough. So I missed that by like, I don't know what, 5 years or something. I think like all of the people who like use Instagram religiously are like 5 years younger than me. So kind of flipping back through some comments here. Twin Twiddler said she saw those, but she was wondering what they were. And thanks for explaining. I'm glad that I can be of help. Like, I didn't know what it was for a long time. I had to get some clarification, but this is the third or fourth year I've noticed it. And I think it happened for a long time before that. And Stamping Bandit says it's like a swap with different partners. Yeah, it it's not an easy thing to explain. Like I said, it's just easier to show you what I mean. And Savannah said sharing and giving. So yeah, it's just it's a way that if you have something that you can give it to somebody, and you can get something that makes more sense for you. So Savannah is saying good night. Good night. Thanks for joining us tonight. Um, that's really all that I have to talk about tonight. I just wanted to update you with some of the stuff that I'm working on, and then if you guys have questions or comments, or you want to see something more on Instagram or Ravelry or whatnot, I've got my computer out tonight. So, or other crochet and yarn questions. So I'm going to sort of turn it back over to you. Jake's saying they want to know how old everyone was when they started crocheting or knitting. I don't know. What was I, like 23, 24, something like that? Yeah. So the twins are 8, so it was within the last 8 years. But I started crocheting. So my grandma crocheted all while I was growing up. She made blankets for everyone. When I was relatively young, I had asked her to teach me, but I'm left-handed, and she just assumed that I was going to need to crochet left-handed, and she had no idea how to go about teaching me. And I guess I didn't push very hard because I just never did learn how to crochet. And so I decided just at some point to pick it up, and my husband says he recommended it. I assume that that's probably true. His memory's better than mine. Yeah, he could crochet a chain. His grandma and mom both crochet, right? So he picked it up as a kid, but could just chain and chain and chain and chain and chain. Um but yeah, I just watched some YouTube videos and learned how to do it. And I've had a lot of hobbies that didn't stick particularly well. I scrapbooked for a while. I did some jewelry stuff for a little while, and like there's various craft stuff all around this place that I didn't really get attached to, but crochet was one that I really got attached to. Um, Jake's asking if I have a big yarn wall. I have a like I don't really a vault. My I have all of my yarn is stored in plastic totes, which came in handy recently because our basement flooded. So I have 18, 15. I think they're 5 high. I have 15 totes of yarn, like just off that way that you can't see. They're pretty full. It's getting to a disturbing amount of yarn. But I don't know. I enjoy shopping for yarn and I like having it, and it's just sort of a become a collection. It's a little bit the reason why we started doing this was just because I had stuff and I had um things that I could talk about and things that and really my husband's into photography and videography, and so we were able to just do some videos at a like much higher quality than the competitors. So um yeah, I guess I shouldn't say competitors, but like other channels. So um Tiny Twiller's saying, what is the other place people left Ravelry to go to? I hear bits and pieces about it, but I only have a limited screen time, if that makes sense. I haven't been able to track it down. I honestly don't know. I know Ravelry caused a big kerfuffle a while back, and people got upset and went to make another thing. Um, the problem I guess I see is that Ravelry's really a good platform. Like it's got everything I want, and I would be hard pressed to think that another. I mean, I'm sure somebody can make a better website, but I don't know. Um, I don't know. I haven't heard enough about it really to venture to find anything else about it. But I know people have been making their way back to Revelry, so I can't imagine it's all that good. But I don't know. I don't have any firsthand experience with an alternate platform. I do know that there are a handful of websites, particularly the websites run by yarn companies, that are just really bad. As far as like getting information and like finding what you want to know. I actually have always found Red Heart's website to be almost unusable, like as far as like getting information off of there. And it doesn't search well. Like they don't even have some of their own yarns listed, and it's a little bit of a mess. So, um, I don't know. So, um, but yeah, I unfortunately I don't have a better answer for that. I don't I haven't heard enough about where other people have gone. Runaway Needle Red saying they were 7 or 8 and never stopped crocheting. Learned to knit at 10, 12. And do most other fiber crafts. They all stuck. I have learned to cast on as far as knitting goes, and I can knit a couple of rows. I don't know how to purl. I don't have anything against knitting, but I just haven't really had the time to devote to getting good enough to knit that it's worth knitting, if that makes sense. Like, I have so many things that I want to crochet that I just haven't had enough downtime to learn to knit properly and get any good at it. So, I would say I can do the bare minimum to say that I can knit, and that's it. Um, And by that, I have not even made like a washcloth sized piece of fabric. So, um, as far as other fiber arts, you guys have seen me spin. That's about the extent of the spinning that I've done. It's not very good, and I didn't get super into it, sort of for the same reason. But I haven't abandoned it entirely. I just need to spend some time messing with it. Um, and then I haven't really done any weaving, but I am actually going to have to learn here really soon. Because I'm going to have to weave at work. So we just got in earlier this week. We got a 24-inch hand loom from a relative of a coworker who was like getting rid of it, and we actually sort of needed one. So that came in, and it is sitting in an array of pieces that needs to be reassembled and like put back together, and somebody needs to learn how to knit or weave. So I'm going to contact, there's a Weavers Guild in this area, and then there's also a local yarn store, and I know that the owner weaves. So I'm thinking I'm going to be getting some lessons through work, actually. So we'll see how that goes. It could be fun. It could just be a lot of effort to make a very small piece of fabric. So I'm not sure. Let's see. Is saying that they're finally learning interlocking crochet, working on peppermint blankets. Really fun. Took a minute to figure out the first row, but I've got it going now. I've seen that peppermint blanket before. It looks really cool. If it's the same thing that I'm thinking of, I'll pull it up so that people know what we're talking about. Well, I guess there's a couple different ones. This one I think is done in interlocking crochet. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that this is the one that we're talking about. These pictures are slightly out of focus. But anyway, it looks really cool. I think the big draw in interlocking crochet is that it like looks really cool, like from the front and back, and is sort of reversible in sort of a unique way. So, this is actually not the one that I was thinking of. This is the one that I was thinking of. When you originally said peppermint, but I don't know that this is interlock. This might just be color switching. So I'm not sure which one. So that first one was not the one, but anyway, there's a couple of different peppermint throws on there. So, yeah. Twin Twiller says looks like peppermint candy. So I think the second one is closer to the one that she's talking about. But she's gonna tag me on Facebook. So when she does that, that's the one. So I guess this one is done in interlocking crochet. This one I've always thought was really cool looking. It's like a whole bunch of pinwheels, and looks like, I don't know. It looks so cool, just worked up and swirly, and I don't know. I like peppermint candy, so it looks kind of neat. But there's a bunch of different variety there. Jake's asking where I work. I work for a startup company that produces natural, how do I want to say this? We produce products that are improved versions of natural products. So primarily I work in their yarn product line, making cotton yarns perform more like synthetic yarns. So most clothing is blended with polyester for a variety of reasons, whether it's wear or moisture management or pilling or whatever property that the designer was going for. The vast majority of garments are made with a synthetic as part of the like product. So whether it's polyester, whether it's nylon, they're generally either 100% or blends of a natural and a synthetic. And so the company that I work for is trying to push to get 100% cotton products to perform more like synthetic products. So, sort of a generalized overview of what I do, but it's a company that, what do I want to say? So, I guess what I want to say is I work with yarn all day long, and then I come home and do a very different kind of thing with yarn. So, pretty much my whole life is about yarn. The yarn that I work with, though, at work is not like a knitting and crochet yarn. It's the yarns that you would use to go into clothing. So very, very fine weight yarns. But yeah. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to catch up through the comments here. Yeah. So my husband's asking if there were Ravelry or Instagram or Facebook things that I want to show. We've gone through a lot of what I try and show people all the time on Ravelry on like how to use the search more effectively in past streams, but I don't know if there's specific questions that anyone out there has on Ravelry or Instagram or Facebook that I can help with. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything in particular I wanted to show. Just glance through my library here and see if there was anything that I wanted to share or show off or tell you about. I'm struggling to think of anything in particular I wanted to show. So, yeah, I know this is kind of I haven't, like a sort of a short live stream here that I kind of just wanted to do an update. I wanted to make sure that I streamed and talked with you guys because I enjoy doing it. If you guys have anything that you're working on, you want to share or talk about or anything like that. I know we talked about the peppermint candy interlocking crochet blanket, but I don't know if anyone else is working on anything interesting. Somebody else said that they were working on a cardigan. But yeah, I don't know what you guys are working on in particular. I've been sharing on Instagram a bunch of things that I've gotten done. So I shared those on a live stream recently. I did some crochet edge blankets and some scarves and pillowcases for presents recently, and then that's kind of the last major thing that I got done. I've got these hat and cardigan. So that's about all I'm working on. Let's see. What yarn do I like better? Parfait Layers or Bernat Blanket? I have. All right. So by feel, by working with it, I actually really love the way Parfait Layers feels. If you actually take a look at my review on Parfait Layers, it's less than stellar. I ran into a bunch of problems with a variety of different balls of Parfait Layers where I kept hitting like weird sections. So the yarn is supposed to be a 1-2-3, 1-2-3 repeating pattern. And what kept happening is I would get like 1-2-3, 2-3-1. And like they were just in like random orders. Some of the yarn, occasionally, like you'd find a ball where it was totally just missing a color. They just did a really poor job of joining the yarns together, I think, at the factory, and not really caring or paying attention to the fact that they were supposed to be a repeating pattern set. I have not had that issue with other Premier yarns. I've used a bunch of their DK layers. I use some of their sweet roll. And I have not had that problem again, but Parfait layers just had a terrible quality control problem. So yeah, it was a little bit of a mess as far as that, but like the feel on the yarn was really fantastic. It's just the softest, silkiest, like squishy yarn. And I really, really liked it. So Premier also, in addition to making Parfait layers, they do just make Parfait, which comes in solid colors or like variegated colors. And I think, given my choice, I would just work with Parfait. And just pick my own colors and control the color changes and not worry about their quality control issues with Parfait layers. That being said, I think the Parfait is a little bit more expensive than Parfait layers. So Parfait layers came in, I think, 200-gram balls for like $10, and I don't think the straight Parfait is that cheap. But other than that, I would definitely work with Parfait. Bernat Blanket is fine. I've used a ton of it, but it's just not my favorite. It's a little bit like difficult to work with. The microfiber, like the polyester wants to like cling to itself, and it just doesn't like flow like you want it to. Every stitch you're like dragging it through. If you go up a hook size or two, you usually get it a little bit like better movement, but I just always feel like worn out when I use Bernat Blanket. In addition, the Bernat Blanket layers, or whatever it was called, stripes, Bernat Blanket stripes, which is very similar to Premier Parfait layers because it's that like self-striping where they just took solid colors and joined them together. And you can go back and look at my review, but it was not very good. They were just like knotted together. The size of the stripes was like sort of variable. And it just wasn't, again, it just quality control on it was not stellar. I would definitely go with solids and just control my color changes the way I want to. But between the two, I like Premier Parfait better. But Blanket's fine. It's just, like I said, it's a little bit more difficult to work with. The Parfait layers and the Parfait just like glide beautifully. So, Stamping Bandit says that they're untangling a big mess of yarn. Center skein is a nightmare, but working on the brim of a top-down beanie and hoping to finish it after they clean up the mess. Yeah, I've had that happen before. It generally I refer to it as yarn barf. I've heard that a lot on the internet, where you pull out the center of a yarn and it's just like giant knotted mess. So that's unfortunate. It kind of gives like a bad start to a project usually. So, I used to, when I would work with like a yarn like this, I would rewind every ball into a center pull cake so you just didn't have to deal with that like in the middle of a project. But it's not practical. Sometimes you just chuck yarn in a bag and start working, which is what I did with that. So, Chick's saying if I go to YouTube and search creative grandma doily, they'll say what one it is. So let me go back. I've got that pulled up. If you've got a number for that, it looks like a lot of them are numbered with a pattern number. Like this one says floral lace doily pattern number 536. Also, my husband walked away from the computer, so I can't switch back to the laptop view right this second until he comes back to control the stream again. So, let's see. Who else has got stuff we're talking about? We'll switch back to that. Twin Twiller saying just waiting on some new yarn to come in, start a new project, but it's been snowed in Canada. I don't know about the rest of you, but I feel like this winter has started really early. We started with like 4 or 5 inches of snow on Halloween. And it's been cold and miserable since then. So, I would really like it to go back to being fall and not winter. So, we've got a long, something like 40 days still till it's actually the beginning of winter. And I'm not really looking forward to this winter so far. So, I do see the Rising Star doily, so I will I'll point that out in just a second. Are you using the parfait layers to do a doily? Because that's gonna be massive, I think. But or are you using something else and this was just a side thing and I missed a question? So I'll wait and see if there's. But yeah, so also Shalene's joining us saying hi and welcome to the stream, Shalene. Welcome to anybody else out there that I've missed and haven't said hi to. Yeah. Thanks for joining us tonight. Sorry, I'm not very good at introductions and I looked off to the side there. Okay, so you're using thread. You just wanted to show off the project that you're working on. I haven't made a thread doily in a while. I really like doing it. They're just really time consuming. So, it is fun though to do a thread project here and there. I do find it messes up my tension for a while. Like I don't know. When you crochet with cotton, you kind of have to like tighten up your tension and work like with really tiny stitches, and then to switch back to like real yarn, it takes a little while to sort of switch gears and remember what you're doing. So yeah, so let's see. So I've got the Rising Star doily queued up over here, and then the Christmas lace doily. So yeah, they're both showing up there. I'll show those on stream in just a second. I use a 6mm J hook with parfait. I don't remember what hook I used with the parfait layers. It's probably on the video. Or in the video anyway. 6mm sounds about right, though I would suspect I probably used an eye hook, because that's, I don't know why I really like an eye hook, which is a 5.5mm hook. Let me switch to parfait layers and see. What they recommend. So they recommend a hook size. That's a very confusing recommendation. 10 to 6.5mm. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that information. I guess I probably used a K hook then, if that's what they recommend. I generally, because I was doing a project for the like, I bought the parfait layers and did it to review. I usually try and use the hook that they recommend, unless they recommend something really terrible. Which I've had a couple of yarns just really recommend a yarn, like a hook that I was like, I'm not using that. But generally I try and use what they recommend just so that I get a project that I can share with you guys that makes any sense. So if we flip back to the computer, Jake was saying that they're working on this Rising Star doily here. So I was just showing that, and have also done the Christmas lace. So it looks like there's tutorials for those, which makes them sort of like free patterns since there's full tutorials. But those are both really pretty. I actually really like the Rising Star. I made a really like I made a doily that ended up going in the center of a wreath that my so I made the doily, my mom made the wreath to make a giant dream catcher for like a wall hanging. So I made the doily and she sewed it onto the edge and then hung like feathers from the bottom to go to a friend of a friend for their wedding present. So it was kind of fun. I made it really fast. She only gave me like 72 hours notice and then she had to pick it up. So I made it in like 48 hours and then blocked it and my hands were killing me. I picked a pattern that was like mostly chains and open space, and I will never make a doily again that fast. But it ended up being pretty sizable, like yay big. So, um, let's see. Parfait the same as brunette blanket. People are weighing in, saying that it's way thicker, and yeah, it's brunette brunette blanket is thicker and again like grabbier, where parfait layers is like silkier. I don't really know how to they're I think they're both 100% polyester. Like there's not really any appreciable difference. They're just very different. Um Brunette blanket feels more like a microfiber cloth, where parfait layers feels like velvetier, if that makes any sense. Um but but yeah, they're different. They have their strengths and weaknesses. The biggest is that brunette blanket is available in every color under the sun and widely available at pretty much any craft store you walk into. Um, like you can get brunette blanket at Walmart, at Joann, at Michael's, at like every major box store carries brunette blanket. You can get it online. Um, Parfait layers, on the other hand, I've only ever seen at Joann, and even most of the Joann fabrics are sort of have sort of clearanced it out and made room for different new lines. So primarily I see Parfait online. So um but yeah. All right. Jake's saying that the Rising Star looks hard, but it's really easy. Um yeah, it does. It looks at first glance, but I can see that it because I've made doilies before. I can see how like it would build really nicely in the round. But yeah, it does look intimidating. I think that's probably true of most crochet like lace doilies. They're really not hard. Like there's nothing technically difficult about them. They're they take some investment of time. Like they're going to take a little bit longer because you're working with tiny yarn and building something pretty big. Um and you do have to like really pay attention and like follow, because there's not usually repeats. Um because you're working in the round and growing it, like each row could be slightly different than the last one. Um and so they take some concentration and they take some like investment of time, but like realistically, like as far as the like actual skill that goes into it, it's usually still just single crochets and chains. Sometimes double crochets, sometimes half doubles, but like it's mostly just basic stitches and chains. um so if you're not doing doilies because you don't think you're able to, I would say it's worth giving a shot. So, AC Moore has Parfait yarn. I've never actually been in an AC Moore. They're an East Coast chain, and I live just a little bit too far west. I think they go as far as like Pennsylvania, maybe Ohio. And so I live a little bit out of their range. So, but good to know for those who do live within uh the like AC Moore region. So, Jake's saying that Joanne has Parfait layers once and AC Moore, but they are all upon the coast. Oh yeah, yeah. So, some Joanne fabrics seem to be like better ones, and I don't really know how they decide where those are located. I've mentioned before my sister lives on the east side of Illinois, very close to Northwest Indiana, and there's a like fantastic Joanne fabric in Cherville, Indiana, which doesn't really make any sense. It's not the biggest city around that area whatsoever. But it's just where they put like a really nice Joanne that has like all of the yarn that gets released. So the Joanne fabric in Peoria gets like, if Lion Brand releases 10 yarns all at once, which they do a lot, they might get one of them. And they usually get it like 6 weeks after it's released. The one in Cherville, Indiana, and Naperville, Illinois, get all 10 of them, and they get them like the next day. And so if you go to one of those stores, you can just buy one of everything and just leave with it, and you've got like every new yarn that got released. So it's really a strange thing that they just have a couple of stores that must perform particularly well for yarn, and so that's where they put like their test market. So, yeah, it's kind of an odd thing. I'm a little bit jealous. It ends up not really being better. Like, I've had my sister go and pick stuff up for me, but it ends up not really being better because I don't live near her, and so it doesn't really get me the yarn any faster. So, and Joanne's shipping's not great, but it's still like getting my sister to go pick stuff up for me and then getting her to box it up and ship it to me doesn't really end up any better than just waiting on Joanne fabric shipping. So, Runaway Needle Red saying that the blanket yarn's more hardy than the Parfait. The blanket holds up well to washing. So that's good to know. I haven't washed. I have a couple of Parfait blankets around somewhere, but they've not been washed a whole bunch. They do, like, while you're working it up, I do notice that the yarn sheds a little bit, which is not a great sign, as far as, like, okay, so when they make these chenille style yarns, it's 2 threads twisted up, and they've got the little short fibers between the twists. And that's how Bernat Blanket and Lion Brand Velux and Bernat Velvet and Premier Parfait, all of those are made basically the same way. But the little grabby fibers in Blanket probably hold to each other a little bit better than the short, like, silky fibers. So it's probably why they are able to get out a little bit more, and the other ones kind of cling to each other and don't leave. So, but it is good to know that if you want it, like, to hold up over time, that Blanket holds up a little bit better. Yeah. So, and then Shalene's saying that the shipping to Canada's outrageous. I don't know why shipping to Canada is so expensive. It just is really, really ugly. And I don't quite get why we can't get things back and forth across the border a little bit easier. It's unfortunate because there's a lot of indie dyers in Canada that I really like, and it I would order more from them, but I don't mind personally. I don't mind spending 20 to 25 to even $30 for yarn, but I will not spend money on shipping, and I don't know what it is. Like I think Amazon has ruined us a little bit, where I expect everything to show up in 2 days, and I expect it to do that for nothing. And I pay for Prime once a year, but but I don't like to pay for shipping, and I don't like things to take more than like 48 hours to show up. And so shipping from Canada obviously doesn't meet any of those requirements. It takes weeks. It does also seem, and maybe this is just like personal experience, but it does also seem that Canadian Post takes forever. Like I've noticed I've shipped things and it's made it, and like you can follow the tracking, and it's made it out of customs and it's in Canada, and then it's like another week before it gets delivered. I guess Canada is full of a lot of empty space. So maybe it's just logistics of getting things like from a city out into like a town relatively in the middle of nowhere. So could just be that. But I mean, there are definitely rural parts of the US, but I feel like there's less space between cities in the US than there is in Canada. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't know. Yeah. I assume there probably is a reason, and it probably has to do with logistics and the government, and how much we ship to Canada versus how much they ship to us, and there's probably a whole reason, but it does seem excessively high. Um so but yeah, there are definitely indie dyers that I would buy from more. There's actually one, what is it called? Like Mocha Cotton or something like that. There she does let me see if I can find it real quick. Um she does, what is the name of the thing? Stranded cotton yarns, custom colorways of stranded cotton yarns. So the kind where you have the 4 cotton yarns that you hold together and work up. Let's see if this finds what I want. I'm not finding what I want. Hold on one second. Let me go back to Instagram because I follow this person on Instagram. Let me see if I can find it that way. Ah. Okay. I don't know. I messed Instagram up. Instagram doesn't really work on your computer. Like, I can't do everything on Instagram. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they specifically cripple Instagram off of like a phone. They don't want you to use Instagram on a computer or on a tablet or anything like that. So they disable features. Of course I'm not going to be able to find it. Oh, well. No. Well, I can't find it. But there is a yarn company that I really like out of Canada. And the yarn is relatively cheap. Stranded cotton yarn is actually pretty cheap for the amount that you get. But the shipping is like $16 or $18 to get it here. And if the yarn's only $18, then it's like, okay, well, I can probably justify $36, but if I add on 2 more, the shipping only goes up by like $1, and but then I'm spending $100, and I didn't really want to spend $100, and so it's like I just end up ordering nothing, which is probably okay, but I don't know. I guess that's all I've got to say about that. Is I wish it was cheaper to ship internationally. I have found though that shipping from the UK here tends to be reasonable. And I've mentioned a handful of times on streams and in yarn reviews and tutorials that I've shipped from woolwarehouse.co.uk, and they have really good shipping, and it has always been really reasonable. Um, they do like 3 to 5 business day shipping for 4, or I guess 5 pounds. And then you can get like next day shipping. And I think it arrives like the second business day for 10 pounds, which 10 pounds converted to dollars is a little bit steep, but like for next day from the UK does not seem horrendous. So, it's in the realm of if you had ordered from them and you got your order and like you ran out of a yarn and you needed a little bit more, that like you could theoretically pay for that and it wouldn't be like breaking the budget. If you want next day shipping from Canada, even if it's a possibility, it's going to be like $150, I think. Though that's probably an exaggerated number. It's expensive. Twin Twiddler's waiting on an indie dye yarn from just outside of Quebec. It's been a week and just got shipped out, and she said it would take a week or two. And then the dyer's yarn. So I'm not surprised that it took a week to ship, because a lot of times indie dyers don't have, and it depends on the dyer. Sometimes that they have the yarn that you see in stock, and maybe they just took a little bit longer to ship. But sometimes they don't have what they've got listed on the like if you look on Etsy and there's a listing for a yarn, they may not have that yarn made. So there could be production and drying time in there. So just depends on the dyer. Some dyers only list what they've got on hand. Others list basically like a pre-sale where you see a picture of what you want and then they will make it on demand. It just really depends on whether they have enough like clientele or fan base to justify carrying stock. So if they waste a whole bunch of dye making a bunch of colors that nobody will buy, then they have a whole bunch of yarn sitting around that they can't sell. If they put up listings where they sort of pre-sell it, their turnaround times are a lot longer, but then they don't waste any product because they don't have like stock sitting around on shelves. So it's just sort of the balance there. I don't think so. I mean, so as no, as usual, like we're talking about any questions that you guys have, and we're talking about like recommendations on hooks and things like that. If you guys ever have questions that are not like not during a live stream and you just want to ask me something, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram at Experiments in Crafting. You can always message me there. I've had a few people message me recently and I've been able to chat with them a little bit. Unfortunately, a couple of the questions that I've gotten recently I didn't have good answers for, but I'm always trying to help. And then Jake's saying, what's my email? Send a picture of it. The easier way to get a hold of me is probably through Facebook or Instagram. If you don't have those, yeah, I can see if we can find something else. But if you have Facebook or Instagram, just tagging me or direct message me on those is the easiest way to get a hold of me that way. And then Yeah, somebody's saying that they're sure it'll be worth the wait to get the yarn for the indie dyer. So, um, yeah. Um, yeah, I guess that's about all I have for tonight. I probably am just gonna go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. Um, and yeah, if you guys have questions outside of the stream, you can leave those in the comment section after the video posts, or again, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Experiments in Crafting. If you like the video, hit like. If you are not already subscribed, you can hit the subscribe button. Just make sure that you don't accidentally unsubscribe yourself. And if you're not getting notifications, you can click the little bell and hit the drop down menu that will get you a notification to, or like it'll give you a little drop down. Sorry, my brain's all over the place. You'll get a little notification or a little drop down that says personalized, and you can switch that to all, so you should get more notifications about the stream. And I have been trying to stream regularly on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock Central Time. If I don't stream, I've been trying to post on Facebook, Instagram, and on the community tab for the channel. So if you don't see a stream up, could be that we're running a little bit late, but it could just be that we canceled the stream for the night. So check one of those locations as well. Otherwise, you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next Tuesday. Thanks for watching. Bye.